things to order. We got to do all this official stuff, call to order, and approve the minutes. So we'll take a motion to approve the minutes from the last.
I would move to approve because I actually read the minutes this time.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
And great, take it away, folks.
All right, well, we have a few things lined up here for you this afternoon to talk through. You can see we have some of our students here with us. Mr. Reynolds, the instructor, and I think Nick's going to lead us off. Oh, and Charlie, our Cte Coordinator's here as well. We'd hoped to have GT Carr with us as well today, but he's not able to be here. He's feeling ill, so Nick will kind of give us the general outline for what we're going to talk about, and we'll turn it over to the people that matter here. So
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, thanks for coming. We're excited about this. This is just one of the projects, and many of the things, and I'm sure John and the students will talk about that. We'll kick it to them in a second. And then after they have an opportunity to talk about this particular project, Charlie's going to talk a little bit about just what we've done from a coursework perspective to help lead to the future of the home building project that we're going to be embarking on. And John's actually going to be our instructor for that as well, so we're excited about that opportunity. We'll get into some more details as to what that's going to look like and what that pathway will look like for our students, and we're excited about that opportunity. So, John, I'm going to send it over to you and the kids to tell us about what's going on here to start with.
Well, there was a deck here, which was quite similar to this one. We did end up making it 2 feet farther out, because when we went to dig our footings, we hit the old ones. So we changed the plans, and Ms. Hickman's happy because now her deck will be larger. Pretty heavy duty work. These 2x10s are wet and heavy if you've ever framed with them, so just really, I almost joke around, and I'm not joking in a way, PE credit. I'm not joking. This is some serious work here. A lot of physical work. Of course, danger is the #1 issue. Besides that, we want to have fun and learn some stuff. I would say probably so far, one of the more challenging or aggravating things was cutting away the rotted plywood off the building because it wasn't, the ledger board, which is the part of the deck that attached to the house, wasn't flashed properly. So water was dripping in, and over the course of the deck's life, it had rotted. This wasn't original to the house. So we cut all that out, which is sort of surgical, which is kind of a little remodel action, which we wouldn't do on a new house, but most carpenters and remodelers have to get in there and do a little surgery. Remove that, lay down the proper flashing, the proper vapor barriers, and went ahead and did our lag bolts every 13 inches on center. And we went through, and as we do this, I probably annoy you guys because I'm constantly like, hey, come here once, let's see what we're doing here. And because honestly, it's building this deck, it's all looks great, but the reason the last one failed is exactly because of the way they attach it to the house, because it's really easy just to attach that ledger and start building. But if you don't have the proper flashing, it's all for naught in 10 years. So learning things like that, not just how to use the screws and the nails and measuring, those types of building science things have to always be brought up, which isn't typical with a carpenter job because we already know that, which does mean we work, I'd say we're 3 times as slow, but we also work for cheap. So, but trying to be accurate and safe and teach, it just happens. And then we have to make room for mistakes, right? Even I cut some stuff short, especially on that 90-degree day. It was like, that's when we decided to call it. And it was like, hey, I just measured 34 and cut 32, right? We talk about the wood itself, the treatment of it, and of course when we frame, looking down each board, crown up, sistering things together, doing all the things that we do. Before this though, hello.
Hi.
Oh my
Sorry
gosh.
I'm late.
I know you too. I don't need to introduce myself.
No, I know you.
You're a neighbor. So, one thing about this kind of class, I think for me is the most challenging, is I have to check the weather every day. And this, I think, is a big part of the crux of a student-built house or any outside construction. So when it was raining, we went around and went to jobs that were happening, like they're building that bridge across, what was that, over by High D?
Yeah.
So we went there and looked at some of the heavier duty work while it was raining. We went to some other job sites and talked to other carpenters who were also complaining about the weather and the rain. this is part of it. It's like a day like today, it's great. But you don't always have days like that. So trying to make sure that, some curriculum is pretty easy to do chronologically. This will have skips and jumps and things in it when you're building a house. So I want to make sure that the curriculum has enough flexibility that on rain days we talk about blueprints or we talk about footings, and we can always have something to go to, because I'm not done learning either, and there's always something we can go into detail about and spend a day in the classroom. I know we could have homework as well. I know if we partner with Kirkwood, they've got their own curriculum that we could tap into as well for their credit. But really, this is a good, and I don't know if when you drove down Taylor, I don't know if you saw on the right-hand side, we did Taylor Drive last year with GT. We did a full remodel in that, well, pretty much full. We didn't get the drywall, it was burnt out, had a fire. So they drywalled it, and then we put all the windows in, all new doors, all new siding, new deck, and we built the sheds in the back. We partnered with Liberty on that. This is our own job, but
John, would you talk a little bit about what the class is, how it came about, that whole thing? How you
this
ended up
class
doing this?
or the proposed, the new one?
This one.
Construction Lab came about, GT, who's really been a great partner, really we wanted to start this class so that it could be the seedling for a student-built house, honestly. And this type of class is a great feeder because we have these ACE classes, and those are great, and we do a lot of labs. We build mock walls, but they're not ever having to deal with the weather or job sites, or even get to bump shoulders with professionals as well, mentors. So GT really wanted to get students on the job site, so do I, because a lab only does so much. A lab is great. I want the lab so they know what 16 on center means and why we do it, and dimensional number opposed to nominal number, all that stuff. But this was the test piece to see if students. Well, what do you think about it? Tell me first. Let's get straight. What's the worst part of this class? Driving here.
That's pretty much the worst thing out of all of it.
Well, what's the best part?
Getting out of school.
You want the
just
truth.
the environment around it. Mr. Reynolds there's a reason I've been in so many of these classes. He's the perfect teacher for something like this. It's more laid back than any actual work, but you're still learning about actually how to, like in this case, build a deck. And of course, last year there was the siding and all that stuff. Just going through all of that, it's great.
Yeah, I really like this class. It's very applicable to my own life. I built my own deck, and it came into a lot of problems. And for example, literally today, this teacher taught me how to basically de-row a board to make it straight. And that would have been really nice to know during when I was building my own deck. But it's stuff like that I can use in my real life. I don't have to pay someone for it. I like the hands-on work too. Hot days are kind of the worst, but we get through it, and he knows what the club is very patient with us. I don't feel stupid when I don't know something. It's very like, actually, I do it with this. I also cut a board wrong the other day, and instead of getting upset with me because I wrecked one of the few boards we did have, kind of just rolled with it and did something else.
So what about this job? What was the worst part you thought for you guys? Besides the heat day, what was the most difficult stuff?
The most difficult? That ledger board was really tough. That is horrible.
What's that?
The board that is facing on the house, all of the boards, all of these come off of it with the hangers right here, and it just keeps the boards up and makes it so we can hold these.
And attaching that to the house, there was old stuff there that had to be kind of surgically removed that was rotted, and it was good to see because what was nice about that is it's like, see, I told you so. If you don't flash it right, it's all done. It's just all done. Like, flashing is the art of attaching something to something else and not having water get in that gap. And if that happens, you're doomed eventually. Water and wood just don't mix. So that was great because you could see exactly where the problem was. So in a way, it was like, if this was a new house, I would say, hey, if you don't do this, it'll rot, and they'd like, yeah, whatever. But to see it and go, wow, this is not that old and it's nasty, and to see that was a good thing. What else did we do? Otherwise,
Footings. We were digging those footings.
Oh yeah.
And we got all the way down and hit those ancient footings.
Yes.
You know how long ago.
the old deck was different. One of the reasons this looks so beefy is deck code has been increased like 3 times, like a fold to 3 because of decks collapsing. We used to think, like for instance, if you see normal decks that you can see now, none of those are code anymore. And that deck, usually what happens is, I was telling Matt this, parents are out of town, everyone comes over, cranking the music, deck collapses. Yeah. And no big deal if it's this high. But deck codes have now, it's like building the framing of a house. And we talk about codes, really, codes make tons of sense if you really understand why they're there. And they're a hassle until you realize that buildings have either fallen over or people have gotten hurt because that's why they exist, that kind of thing. Codes and the science of it, the trick for me is to teach building science without making it boring, which usually I never like to have 2 brain days in a row. So we always do it, try it at least, even in my other classes.
Same.
Yeah, and I'm probably, I relate to a lot of my students because I'm an ex-artist carpenter who needs to have my brain stimulated. I can't be bored. I can see busy work a mile away, and I don't want to give them things that they don't feel are pertinent to what we need to do. I'm hoping that, and I know next year, these guys are sort of sworn to secrecy a little bit about this next year, me not being at City High, because I haven't quite announced it to everybody yet. But one thing about that job is for the next year, what I think is the greater good, but is going to be work is making sure that West has got a strong ACE program, so that then of course there is a feeder coming into the student-built house, and I know there's hundreds of kids there who are chomping at the bit to try this and do this. It's just they have never been exposed. They haven't had a chance, and I just need to get there and shake some hands and say good morning and spread the word, and we'll get another flow, because it's so easy because it's all there. It's not like I'm doing something the kids don't enjoy or want. It's just like they just line up. And usually the biggest issues are scheduling, getting kids here. Like I have a lot of students who signed up for this class who ended up not being able to make it because they're like, Mr. Reynolds, I can't do it because it's just 2 periods long, 6 and 7. Sometimes we take advisory. But you get twice the credit, but it's not available. How if you have a student in school, how hard it is to schedule. So for next year, that's another thing I want to work with, is how, if it's a day-long class and there's 3 schools feeding it, how would they feed? Is it group by group? Is it that they float in? I would kind of like them to be able to float in when they can. If they got a 2-hour break, then there's much more flexibility in the schedule. I can make it from noon to 1. And they can make it from 8 to 10 or something. And then there's always going to be someone there. And then they could show up when they had an opening, and would I think help out a lot, because the scheduling, man, it really crunches the kids. So I love the flexibility. If we could figure something like that out.
I think that's 2 things I was. Oh, sorry. Well, 2 things I was thinking about. So one, I think you kind of answered. Having the ACE classes has helped you have a group of students that are ready to kind of be able to take off and go with these. So you kind of acknowledge that. The second one would be kind of just talk about future opportunities for these guys having went through kind of this experience now and what that looks like for kids that are completing this.
That's right. So I would say, first of all, the apprenticeship programs are strong and all over the place. They are calling me, coming by, asking Price Electric, the JP Lumber. We have the Laborers Union came by. They're all desperate to get people in, and the ability to show up as an apprentice, understand the chronological steps of building a house, knowing the professions. They already have a big grasp of what's up. They know what needs to be done next. Working here with me, they know when I'm about to ask for the drill. You know, they kind of see them getting ready, and that's the kind of thing. And then I always joke around like, how do you teach work ethic? And all I tell them is, if you're working as hard as me, you're good. And if you're not, then something's up. You're either faking it, you either be pushing a broom or something, but you're standing around not doing anything. Or I go to pick up a heavy board and you're watching me do it. You know, and that's the kind of thing. It's like no one's trying to be rude or anything. They just don't know. Like they're like waiting to be asked or something. So seeing that happen, knowing when you jump in, like and what it is to just give a good, honest day's work kind of thing. You know, that helps because they're showing up. I know a lot of the apprentices, a lot of kids show up and they have no expectations. They don't know what the deal, what kind of a work schedule would be. They don't know if they should ask for help or if it's okay to go ahead and be proactive or where it's appropriate. Being with me, they can make those mistakes safely. They can go on a job site then ask the right questions. Because the truth is, after asking all these people in the HB, what do I need to teach? What do you want from me? Produce from someone, really what they've said across the board, we need someone who's trainable. That's it. Trainable. And you know, obviously that means being able to measure, understanding building science. But when they mean training, they mean in their area and their company. I've worked for many carpenters, and hey, John, we don't wind our extension cord up that way. Like, we don't. I mean, there's a way each company likes to do each specific thing. So they want you showing up with a good foundation of knowledge, and then being able to be trained into whatever specifics that might be. It could be HVAC, could be plumbing, could be electrical. They all tie together. We all work together. I frame walls so people can put wiring and electrical and put windows in them. Or, you know, an electrician also has to work with the carpenters and the plumbers, and everybody has to coordinate. You know, I'm hoping that they'll run their own companies, and they, you know, or take construction management at Kirkwood, so that and they see this happening and they're like, oh, lumber. How about where's the lumber go to make it efficient on the job site? Where should we have our cut stations up? You know, if we have a pattern out, how can we start to sort of they call it like production work, like professionals really cranking stuff out. Like, how do you make it efficient? You know, those are kind of high-end things, because first thing I'm saying is measure correctly, make a nice line, cut on the line. Right there, that takes a lot of skill, especially when I want it every single time perfect. And those skills are something that's sort of the throwing of the ball, but then all of the other sort of when to steal a base and all of that stuff, that is a whole nother thing that it comes later. But they'll understand why if they come through here. Because, for instance, the ACE Academy, let's call it, and I have to give a lot of credit to Joe Greathouse. I don't know if you know Joe from Kirkwood, but he's been a big mentor in helping with the ACE program and stuff, and really setting stuff up. And a long time ago, I took some classes at Kirkwood, and we met, and we talked about this as a dream, this and the student-built house, but this was so far away. The city didn't have any ACE at the time or anything. So, you know, he has been a big one about trying to create the ACE Academy, which is essentially a blueprint reading class, where the students will learn how to read a blueprint, design their own small house, understand scaling, and you need to. It's like cooking in a recipe book, right? You understand that. Then we have Intro to ACE, which is essentially a little of everything, including intro to blueprint reading, all the way up to putting on shingles. But that's where the labs come in. we can't really do anything except for practice and show. But wow, in one trimester trying to cover all that, I just try to take the good pieces and the rest is going to have to happen in later classes, like construction materials processing. Construction, is that right? The construction technology. Construction technology. We have construction materials processing. Construction technology, which is, in that, technology means tool. We really focus on every single tool of every single trade, whether it's a transit, whether it's a backhoe, whether it's a table saw, whether it's a what? Yeah, how to like electrician's tools, multimeters, strippers. What's the difference? You know, all of the tools of all the trades. So they, when they go somewhere, they just know what all the tools are, and they know the tools of all the trades and what they're there for, and all those things, little bits of knowledge. It starts filling the bank up. And I know I was a carpenter. I got hired as a carpenter, and we were joking, right? You guys were making fun of me. 1990, but I knew nothing. I've done the reverse, but I've done the reverse. I went to art school and then became a carpenter to pay for school, and I really didn't even know why I did it the way I was doing it for so many years until I went to Kirkwood and took the construction management classes. I was like, huh. Who would have known? That's why I've been doing it this way. So I wanted to be the opposite for these kids where, hey, I know what's going on. And then when I get on the job site, I know why I'm doing it. I was good at what I did. I just didn't know exactly why I did it 8 steps deep. And they will know already. Because I would make mistakes not catching step 6. I'm like, well, I could put this anywhere. Well, if I thought 6 steps in, I'd be like, well, the drywallers are going to cuss my name out if they see this happening, or the electricians or the plumbers or something like that. So I do feel like you know Bob Statlander, and I don't feel like Bob Statlander, rest his soul, did all this before me and had done it before in the past, a long time ago, 15 years ago. So in other schools around have been doing it. So the cool thing is, the precedence has been set for years, so I don't have to really recreate the wheel. We'll create our unique wheel for the Iowa City School District because we are so unique in Iowa. So we're going to have our own thing. But at the same time, the foundation of facts and knowledge is all the same. So I'll put my own twist on it. Yeah.
Can you flesh out for me more what an apprenticeship for our students looks like? Is it paid? What's average pay? Is it full-time? Are there benefits? Are they also taking classes at Kirkwood? Like, what opportunity is there?
Let's just, I'll kind of throw like price electric out there. So what they'll do is they'll take a student right out of high school, and I'll just throw a number. Let's say they're paying their electricians $35, $40 an hour. That student jumps right on the job site, gets half wages, doesn't know anything, is there to help. They could be my apprentices. They'll do that, and they'll go to school at Kirkwood at night to get, so that they can take the Iowa test to become a certified electrician. Price, and this is not uncommon, will pay 100% of their schooling if they get an A, and then accordingly as you go down. When you finish your 2-year apprenticeship and get your certification, they guarantee if you take a job with them, they will give you a check for your back pay, the other half of your wages you didn't earn, and get you full-time $40 an hour. Where do I sign up, right? I mean, no debt. I mean, here's the thing for me, is like, I went to art school, I went to higher education. I want these kids to get a skill so they can go get their philosophy degree. They're not done going to school. I don't want them just to be, oh, I'm done. I want this to be a springboard, a place for them to say, hey, you know, how many people work in restaurants or whatever to put themselves through school? Why not the trades? Why can't the trades be a stepping stone towards higher education, in that, you know, whether it's going into architecture or engineering or your own company? So I don't want this to be necessarily just something that, oh, look, we're giving jobs now to the HBA, we're getting employees to the HBA. I want this, I care about these guys. I want them to have the skills to go through life and maybe reduce their debt in the process, but still do what they want. And I'll throw this out there, for as far as I'm concerned, you know, the prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed until you're 25, so going into heavy debt until you're is a little tough until you're 25, because I went to undergrad. If I could do it over, right, what I would have done differently. So I'm kind of saying, hey, let's take some time to get into this heavy debt, but let's all go and pursue higher education. You know, we need to do that. But this is an art. It's a skill. You could do it on your own house. You could do it professionally, or you could just do it to pay for your degree. So I just want to throw that in there as far as kind of the way I like to look at it.
How many students do you have
In my
Class?
this class, unfortunately, we had 9 signed up. We had 5. 4 of them couldn't make it. The other problem is because a lot of seniors who had it open, where I saw them, they're just like, screw it, I'm not coming. I don't have to be here. They don't need the credit. So that was not perfect. Last year we had 9, but these are all kids who had to have taken. They have to be able to get 2 hours off and have taken the ACE Academy. And the truth is, I can't have more than 9. A crew of 9 is tough to keep going. Most crews were like smaller than that, but if you know, I would want to have at least 7 people on a job at any time. So if the student built house was happening, you know, no matter what, there'd always be 7 students there. And you know, if you could, who knows how many students then you could fill up as they showed up. My architecture class is always big. That's really kind of branching out a lot of students who are taking it not because they're interested in construction, because they're interested in architecture. There really are a lot of classes like that. And the ACE class is super popular. That's one of the more popular ones. So that one's usually, you know, 20s. Again, that's in a lab environment, so I can safely work with 20 kids with power tools. Here, if someone's cutting over there, I hear, and I'm like, what's going on over there? And, you know, by the time I get over there, I might have to quietly take some screws out and readjust something. Which I don't care about mistakes. It's like if I hear a weird saw noise, it's more me having eyes on all safety issues. I know at the junior high, I kind of feel guilty because I've had classes when I taught woodworking classes that are really high, and then here I feel almost guilty because I might have like, you know, under 10 kids sometimes. But I don't know. The value is just huge. I think it's like there's no. I don't know, and I do think it's just going to keep. My fear is that what usually happens is the classes get popular, and then suddenly it gets so big that it's uncontrollable. Which is great if we just hire more FTE, but you know, that's not easy enough to do. But so kind of keeping it, I kind of want to keep this the AP. I want this to be the AP of my area. And honestly, last year was the first year I was full-time at City. I was split between Southeast and City for the last 6 years doing both. So we don't even have a shop at City High. So everything that's happened in City High is basically happening because of the kids' love for it, not because of some awesome shop yet.
I'm working on the shop.
The shop is actually.
I saw you turn in there, Charlie.
The shop is looking great.
It's in progress.
No, it's good.
It kind of looks like a shop in the cafeteria. Yeah, I talked to John over there a couple
It's
weeks
definitely,
ago.
and that's bittersweet too, because one of my goals was to get City High up and running, and I might not be able to.
You'll still have a chance to get over there a little bit.
True.
I think it'd be good to kind of transition a little bit. Let Charlie talk a little bit about the courses. We kind of reference them, and then also like if you're not, one of the names that keeps getting thrown out is GT Carr. I mean, he's from the Home Building Association. If you're unfamiliar, that's where our partnership is. As we're doing the student built house, as you talk about it being unique to kind of Iowa City. A lot of other places when they do this, it's they own the land, they own the district's kind of doing all that. This partnership will be a nice opportunity to really get our kids involved with a wide variety, as John was referencing, of kids being next to professionals and being the individuals who are experienced with that.
At some point, we'll have to get GT to talk to you guys. He wanted to be here tonight, but like I told you, he wasn't able to because he's ill. So at some point, that'd be a good follow-up conversation too. Thank you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you guys.
Super impressive
About
what you
both
guys are doing.
seniors too. So
All right.
I love it.
Congratulations.
Seriously.
Hey, so I'm Charlie Gardner. I'm the Cte Christian Coordinator, and I kind of want to start off with just saying I feel very privileged to have coming into Iowa City, kind of where it's at, and I really felt that I just got more behind John and the other ASTEM teachers and upper tech teachers in this They've already kind of got the ball rolling, and like I think that's great. And so I think we've kind of made some strides in the offerings we've had in Iowa City. So to start with, just kind of courses and some changes or some things we're looking at in the future. One of the main changes at the middle school is that we are switching from all students having to take applied, which is more of an engineering-based class, to they have the option to take either applied or industrial. And I think that's going to be, I think part of that was because getting a certified CTE teacher in the middle school is kind of challenging, but we have it now. So we were able to make that shift, and I really think that's going to be beneficial to the industrial tech program going into the high school, because there's going to be, and so far the registration for that is huge. The number of shift from kids, actually now signing up for industrial tech. So obviously the desire to do it was there. So we're years down the road before we really see what that develops into, because obviously it takes years to figure it out, but I think it's a positive change. So at the high school level, we've really been looking at like the courses offered, and I know John had referenced quite a few courses there, but we're really looking at like what courses can we take out to then focus on the ACE Academy. So instead of kind of like dividing into two different ways is kind of the thought of manufacturing or construction. Let's really build our construction program strong across the district, and then let's come back and backfill that manufacturing versus just kind of dabble at it. It's kind of like the thought there. So part of that was obviously getting City High is their industrial lab space and get it outfitted with the equipment they need, and so we're still working on that. But also get West. Also, all the rest of the ACE courses, like so City High didn't have all the ACE courses, but they're going to offer a full gamut next year, which is going to be awesome as far as the architecture class, intro to ACE, construction material processing 1 and 2, construction tech 1, residential construction, and then this construction lab is kind of like a capstone to that program. And then North Liberty is going to have, Liberty High is going to have all the same construction classes, and then really the gap was at West. And so with John taking the student-built house position, which we'll talk about next, but I think it's going to be a really positive too, because now we have the ability to kind of have him as a hybrid for this next year, taking on some of those ACE courses that West otherwise won't have the ability to teach, and now they do. But then whoever we hire back from the City High, still take on all those ACE courses at City. So we'll have all the high schools teaching the same courses, which is something I've been trying to work on, and Nick's been really helpful in helping me with. Let's get some of these one-off classes and let's prune it, and let's come back down to a streamline, and then we can always branch off from there. Hopefully for all the high schools is really the goal. So yeah, this class is the capstone. I know there was so much talk about it. I don't know where to go next, but high school registered apprenticeships. So that's another thing that we have looked into pretty hard. To get the ball rolling on that, I wasn't quite successful to get it off the ground this year, but I'm hopeful that next year we'll get the actual official high school registered apprenticeship off the ground. And so then kids who are in the ACE program can actually, while in class, could actually be working towards an apprenticeship, and then they can transition into the construction management program at Kirkwood, and all the hours they got in the student-built house will actually transfer into the construction management class, so basically get a jump start. And then the other really nice part about getting that going is if you have a program like that where you can actually, like, kids will apply to get that registered apprenticeship, they already know what the sequence of courses they are versus just kind of taking one-offs here or there, because that's their end goal. And so they would actually technically take the sequence of classes in construction tech prior to this class, then would be their junior year, and so you don't run into that senior year problem where all of them are like, well, I don't need the credit, I'm not going to come to this. And so really we should see numbers in this class increase because they'll all be taking it technically as juniors. Not that they couldn't take it as a senior, but most of them will be, because in their senior year they'd actually be off campus for half the day doing a job on the registered apprenticeship, so and earning hours that way, and then continuing to go to Kirkwood. So I'm hopeful to get that going, and really just again working on some partnerships and doing some paperwork, and I just wasn't quite able to get it going before. And the hindsight there was that we weren't going to be able to offer it for summer. It's a summer program, so we weren't going to be able to offer it this summer And so since we missed the window for this summer, we'll just offer it. We'll get the ball going for next summer. And it also helps that we'll have the student house going. So, yeah, that's kind of what the changes we've made as far as like programming and curriculum.
How do kids find out about it?
That's a great question. You know, I've done a PD about how do we grow, promote our courses, and the largest one is word of mouth. Typically, it's just word of mouth, and you know, I would like to think that we could do, you know, a little better job as far as like promoting it within our schools and the teachers and getting the word out in the counseling office and everything else. I don't think we're doing a bad job. I think we could always do improvement. So, yeah, it's something we've referenced and we've talked about. Even like, you know, the woodworking class is the construction material processing, which is woodworking 1 and 2. It does stem into the trades, but it's really a really great capturing piece more than anything else. And there's a lot of learning that goes in there with like woodworking, but you can project and like show those projects off and like, you know, display some of the CNC milling, which does go to manufacturing or laser engraving, and that just sparks kids' interest. So like, what is going on in this room? And so I look forward to that class being at City and at West more so. So I think it will promote itself once, you know, you can get. And I really like to get a display case somewhere near the main office of sorts. So we can work on it. If I'm going to make a shameless plug,
There you go.
to, you know, display some of that work. So then, therefore, you know, instead of just being down the tech wing, you know, in its entity, it's, you know, people can see it. Because otherwise, you just don't know what's going on in there.
I think Charlie mentioned early on, that difference between applied technology and industrial technology, that subtle adjustment is going to be really advantageous for letting kids have choice. And Amy and I have talked about this a lot. Like, a lot of it starts in junior high, where we're sparking some of those interests. You know, previously, a lot of kids wouldn't take industrial tech because it didn't fit into their schedule. If you're doing music and you're doing all the other sciences and the math and all the different electives, you might not have the opportunity. So just giving that subtle choice there is now exposing kids to, industrial tech, that's kind of cool. What else does that offer? And that's been the experience I've shared personally. My own daughter got into it this year, and now she's taking one as a freshman. And she's excited about it because, you know, she enjoyed that experience as an 8th grader, and then inspired, like, oh yeah, I'm going to do that as a 9th grader now. So I think, you know, how we can do that early on and just get kids thinking about what are those pathways and opportunities is really important.
Well, just like those entry-level ACE courses John talked about, right? I mean, generating the interest there, this had being that capstone experience. Without those, you wouldn't have a class here, right? I mean, and so that will be the challenge at West High with trying to get those off the ground and get those courses built up first before you get a sizable enough group in here that, you know, can contribute. So, yeah, kids talk about it. They're their best salesmen for us with the classes.
Well, I think it's great that John, you know, was able to build up the program at City, and I think it would be great that you'll have a year of, you know, hyping up at West to get it going too before.
Yeah,
so you transition to the full student.
I'm excited. I think it's
gonna be great.
It's it's just a matter of opening the doors and exposing them to it.
Yeah.
And having good teachers like you and GT.
That's what I was just going to say. John's really humble.
Yeah, I mean, everybody.
John has really built this and has the students interested in doing that. So big credit goes to him.
It's true.
Question on that, is it hard to find folks who are qualified to teach this stuff?
Yes.
Yeah, I can say that seems like
Teach
not
it well
easy.
too, right? To be, I mean,
well,
like,
and
the kids
also
are talking about
be
it being patient and all those things, right? I mean, somebody might have the construction skill, but John's ability to then connect with the kids is just transcendent.
Yeah, I work construction. Nobody would want my boss for a teacher.
Yeah, right.
Awful.
Yes.
Terrible.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Shame and
Yeah,
curse.
right. I don't do that.
No.
It's a very high demand. I mean, that's one of our bigger concerns about doing this is also just backfilling then John, you know, making sure that works out. We're trying to figure out what that looks like. Making sure we get good people to continue the project.
Well, we'll keep these students going through and someday.
There you go. We'll get one of them.
That's right.
Yeah.
So one of the students talked about driving or getting to the site is an issue. That's something we can address.
I'd have to better understand what the concern is there. So,
Well, once in a while, like, I know some of them, what I have done, and I went and took the classes that the district offers so that I can take students in my vehicle, my van. So I can kind of handle a few kids usually, and then some kids will carpool. But I know that is always, even with the regional center, I know with transportation has always been a catch, but that is a good one. I don't know if there's a way to make it easier. But then the problem is once they're there, that wherever that job is, then would a bus come and get them? Or, you know, it's
I wasn't sure what his concern was. Was it just the annoyance of driving?
I think it's, yeah, he probably just is. I know his truck hasn't been running well either, so he's upset about that. But
Gas prices.
yeah,
Students are kind of relying upon their own vehicles.
that's right. That's right.
Could be an issue. Transportation, individual transportation is not one administrator's great interest, but if it does keep kids from participating.
Sure.
Yeah, we don't want to do that.
Yeah. I mean, even I guess it'd be tough for me to do it, but yeah.
And I think that depends too. Like, there's some pieces that we're still working through. Like, okay, you know, John was talking about what the schedule could look like in certain situations. Like, I mean, I think there's pieces like as we determine how we're getting, you know, from 3 different locations to 1 location. What does that look like? What's that schedule look like? And we answer some of those, and that's. I mean, we're not building the house in August, right? So we've got a little time to work through some of those as we're working through some of these pieces and the arrangements. Keep building up the ACE programs, then we get that built. So.
Yeah, and this, so you want to talk about Studeville House? So yeah, well, and before I go to Studeville House, like, you know, I was John at one point in time. So I do what I do because I see this type of course and like these classes is like really where learning becomes applicable, like, you know, real world skill. And I always told kids that, like, it doesn't matter if you don't go in the trades like John was referencing, you can use these skills in your life. Like, I mean, there's so many people I hear, you know, when I tell them what I do, and like, oh, I wish I would have taken those classes, because then I actually know what to do in my house and like do it yourself versus just mess it up and then have to pay somebody to really fix it. So I appreciate everybody's support.
Are you talking about me, Trevor?
Well, keep supporting and maybe.
I haven't called John in a while.
Yeah. So I want to thank you guys all for your support. The Studeville House program. So yeah, again, I have to credit John. You know, that was a dream that he had when I first came on, and he stated that right away. That, you know, like, really, I want to see this transition to Studeville House. Same with Mike Casper, and so yeah, that's what I kind of push with. And I know that Nick has been nothing but supportive on that when I talked to him about it. And so yeah, I didn't know it was going to happen so quickly, but it did, and I'm just thrilled. I think I'm thrilled about the prospect of this. But I've met with the HBA, which again, GT, we've referenced GT quite a few times here, and they've had this kind of going on its own partnership. Partnership, I'd say.
Yeah, for sure.
With GT
we built that structure together.
Yep. And
on
so,
City High Track.
but instead of doing it like just a trimester, you know, once a year, you know, to do it for a full year at an actual house from the ground up is really what the goal was. And the HBA has been nothing but support, and they have a partnership with the city, kind of like that house, where they'll have the property. They're gonna be the general contractors for the first couple of years, just kind of help the project out, GT, and then also Tim Ruth. You know, we had to supply the teacher and the students to, you know, have the experience, and so and the trailer tools. Yep. You know, but still, that's a small investment for such a great, amazing opportunity that, you know, many districts already have, and, you know, I'm thrilled that Iowa City is going to have it. And so, yeah, the partnership is also with the city, and then the HBA, and then there's one other entity in there, but we haven't quite worked out all those details. But
Kirkwood? No.
Well, Kirkwood's
maybe?
an option. I mean, that's one of the pieces that we want to look at.
Yep. Yeah, and that's, yeah, so with this class, I know we also have ran into the first time we offered it, about offering possible concurrent enrollment. But, you know, with it being in a single area with a single teacher, it's going to be a lot easier to maybe explore that as an option to offer concurrent enrollment for the students that are in it. And so I think that's something we're going to look at, you know, once this is off the ground. So, yeah.
So what's happening next year? Because there's kind of a 2-year walk into this, right? Can you guys kind of break that down for the board?
Yeah. So next year, I mean, John's going to do some work, continuing the partnership with UT, helping out, continuing projects like this, and then also teaching at West High. So he's going to be teaching part of his day at West High. to help, so that way we can get those courses started and get some kids excited about it. What's happened is, just over the course of time, we're trying to get, you hear there's different, like we've had different courses offered at different high schools, and we're trying to tighten that up a little bit, so that way it's consistent offerings, whether it's, whatever the subject area is. We're having relatively consistent offerings across our 3 high schools, so that way you're not getting different experience depending on which location you're at. So that's one of the things that we're working on with the courses, was trying to get to that point. So that'll be the piece next year, teaching those, continue to work to recruit kids, work on what this is, going to look like. I think we actually, the HBA has the property and everything, so then, there's probably going to be some prep work, in regards to getting to that. So I think that's one of the things. It was one of those where the opportunity was in front of us, and we wanted to get it going. I find a teacher, and, I pleaded to Matt and the team and said, hey, this is what we got to do. We can get this up and going. Here we go. So is it a work in progress a little bit? Yep, but it's going to be a great opportunity for our kids going forward and just continuing to promote this. And I'm hoping John can be a little bit of a walking billboard for our program as well, right? Of what do we want to see this happen and how we can get kids excited about it.
So is the idea to get one house built a year?
Well, I was talking to GT, and we thought on the lot we have options of either building 1 house or 2 small ones, because we just were trying to figure out how that would work.
But would you build 2 small ones in the same year? Would you build one the first
We thought
year,
we'd build one and then the next one the next
Same
year.
lot, but build
And that
one.
the smaller house would keep the scope a little smaller, because I want the kids to do 90% of the work.
Okay.
Otherwise, that means we need to slow down, maybe reduce the size of it. We're just talking on the phone about how one of the things for next year, we want to get together while teaching at West, come up with the blueprints for the project, and then the plan, and then I can start to flesh the curriculum out around the job. So okay, we plan on digging the hole, and so then I'm like, okay, so we better talk about concrete and foundations, and so I can have my curriculum can kind of fall within the rain days as we go. I'd rather have them understand it before we get our hands on. And so the house itself, the blueprint will tell me, oh, it's cedar siding, it's this, okay, well, let's go through these techniques. So the project itself will dictate the curriculum. Like any of these houses is its own unique beast if you go to build it, although they're based on the same ideas. It's just unique things. So the brick facade here and the vinyl siding there, and then teaching those before they get to them. So, and that's going to be fun too for me, I think. And that means each house, and I hope for years to come, it's just house, and that's what had happened in the past. And who knows, maybe there's a house, 5 years from now, City has their own project, Liberty has their own, West has their own. That's not crazy to think about, because if you look at, Dicer, Prairie, they have their own programs. Schools as big as, so we should have no problem. And I'm a little worried, because I think once this starts getting rolling, which is, I just want as many students to get opportunity as possible. I hate to turn someone down, but that would be my big fear, is the student couldn't do it because they couldn't get in.
Right.
Not because of their schedule, because of a want. But when we get to that bridge,
we'll cross that.
So I'm sorry if I missed it. Who owns the land? Then who's paying for the supplies? And then what's going to happen to the house once it's built?
So my understanding is that the city actually owns the property. They're going to some sort of, they're going to sell the property and then basically rebuy back the property, but they're also going to provide all the supplies. That's kind of like the format that's going to happen. They're providing all the supplies, and then when they buy it back, then I don't know what they're going to do. The first building is going to be historical, possibly.
It's in the north side,
it's
so
a
I could
possibility
see,
of
I could see,
historical,
yeah,
which is going to
I
be
could
its
see,
own fun challenge.
yeah.
All the supplies provided.
And when you say city, I assume it's Iowa City.
Iowa City, yep. Jeff?
You guys may know this, but actually the district had a student-built house program a number of years ago, which I, as part of the Housing Fellowship, had a part in, because the Housing Fellowship actually bought the house after it was built. It was sold to a qualified for
Affordable housing.
affordable housing. And it wasn't really terrible until But anyway, so that worked for a number of years.
That's great. I love that idea.
Yeah. And, you know, the district and their partners worked through all of these various issues. Right. And it was very popular. It's certainly with students, at least that's what I understood. Maybe go back and get some of the information from people that were involved in that.
Bob Statlander taught that, and Bob just passed away last year, or a year and a half ago, and I was lucky enough when GT and I started talking about the construction lab, I actually called him up. And I said, tell me what's up. What did you go through? What did you have to do? And I got a lot of good background on how his experience was. He built many, many houses, the pros and the cons. So he was able to sort of, he was super excited, and his family actually wants to participate. They've asked me, how can we do something for the Statlander family? And that maybe I could rehash that with his son. But I was lucky to get Bob's ear, and he told me a lot that helped me out a lot about, you know, even as good as it seemed, of course he was from the outside, he was able to tell me that, you know, from the instructor's perspective, the inner workings of, and I was like, oh gosh, I would never have thought of that. So and that is for me, he's the kind of the standard, the minimum standard, which would be, I would really have to work hard to replace Bob and what he did.
So the city's kicking in the supply and the land. We're kicking in students that hopefully do 90% of the work. Can you clarify GT's role? What's
He's
he
the
doing?
general contractor.
GT and Tim Ruth from McCready Ruth, those guys will be there to help me. Hey, you need a dumpster, you need a porta potty, you need some lumber, you got some roofing coming, should we get the scaffolding? We'll have it here on Monday.
That's the part where we about killed John on that track building you see on the City High campus. John was doing all of that too. So he's basically serving as the general contractor, getting all of those supplies and all those arrangements made. And so GT's role is really to step in and do that part, kind of the management side of
And do
that.
assistance subcontractors, I think, as well.
Logistics.
We'll use other HVA subcontractors for that 10%.
Yep.
That, you know, that's kind of the part of the agreement there, is that we're also supporting that organization.
And then I can say, hey, who's working with the electrician today? And they're like an apprentice. They would hang there and say, you know, give me the wire nuts. They wouldn't be able to do a whole lot, but that's what you do as an apprentice. And then they could see the job, and the plumbers, they could see the plumbers doing stuff. We'll be able to do, you know, with the concrete work, we'll be able to, you know, that work sometimes gets also out of our skill zone because of danger and things, but we can be there for it and help, and just to be there, part of every single process. And maybe someone's like, I really like this electrical stuff, and maybe the student could even then, instead of showing up on our job, could go and do an apprenticeship with this electrician if we had the ability to do that. And the other thing that at least in the HBA, they know they're getting into it in a mentor capacity. So when they show up, it's like get out of my way, you're slowing me down. It's, hey, this is why we're doing it this way. They know that they're going to be probably compensated because no one's going to complain because it took a little longer because you're helping a student. So that for me is the biggest one, is having these professional mentors there, and that to me is a huge thing that it's hard to achieve in a lab scenario. I can talk about the jobs and have them come in and speak, but to see it done and say, well, maybe I don't want to do this, or wow, this was a lot of fun.
So is this a year-long class? And how much of the day are the students spending?
It should, in a perfect world, they show up at, they're there at 8, I guess 8:50 is when school starts, right? At 8:50. So they're there at 8:50 and they leave at 4. And I mean, if we go to the bar here and there, so yeah.
So we're looking at a couple different models for that. We haven't quite decided on, but like most schools, what they'll do is they'll have a morning group fed by all 3 high schools, and then they'll, you know, basically break for lunch, and then they'll have an afternoon group from all 3 high schools. So it's half a day typically. And again, that's not the model we have to go with, but that's the model typically used. And then you get a whole new group in the afternoon, so morning group, afternoon group typically. But yeah, we could look at different
Yeah, and I'm of course like, I mean, for me, I'm student driven, so whatever it makes it easier for the students might slow us down, but that's why I'm here, like for the students. So the job is is a series of processes, not a project. Like projects just come and go, but the processes are what we focus on. So really, that's kind of students and processes, and we just end up making product.
Other questions you guys have? First,
we
we gotta get you a different hat.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm just curious, how does like this job, this deck, like how does it end up in the program? I mean, can I call up and say, hey, you know what, I'm gonna do deck?
You're not the first person who's asked that. I wonder how that works. I think, I don't know. I would say that I'm so project hungry because I'm always looking for curriculum that anything that was ethical I'm into. You know.
So you would not be able to do it.
Didn't you say GT brought you this one? Though?
You're on the board.
Yeah, I was gonna say
GT,
that would be
yes.
Project, brought you this idea.
Yeah, 'cause when we partnered with the city down the street on Taylor, the city was pretty happy, and so they were very into this. We actually had a kitchen that we could do as well that we weren't able to do, but so there's the city has a lot of projects around here, and I know that they really want to partner with this. And I'm not positive that the program's called the HEART program out of Dubuque, but that's a good one to look into. It's sort of a similar program to what we're hoping to get. It was where the city of Dubuque are providing structures for the industrial tech department of the high schools to work on. And I don't know to what capacity, but it's similar to this, and I think it's also similar in the sense of maybe not quite Habitat for Humanity, but in that genre of.
So they must apply to the city in some
community.
way, and then they have a list of those things. Like you said, if there's a kitchen or a deck, or the city must have a list.
That's
of these
right, and
types of
it's
projects.
so, you know, and that's what before I thought that for the meantime, the construction lab would have been just us every year, new projects, small ones all over the place, but as well as me teaching all my other class levels, which means they have to be small, because I did teach all day as well in normal classes and then show up here, so it's a little hard to kind of readjust, but to have my whole world being one thing, that would be I don't want to say easier, but a lot less stressful, and I could focus on, you know, all my energy into one area, which would be great for me, I think. But yeah, there are precedences out there, so it's kind of nice to know that there's a whole bunch going on around the state, and we can just kind of pick and choose, create our own here.
I don't think we fall short on project or partnership, but this is really, in my thoughts, it's kind of a tip of the iceberg and all. I think there's a lot of opportunities ahead, and a lot of groups and other parts of the community that we kind of informally talked with that would love to see, like, what are other opportunities or what are some other ways that we can get our students involved. And so I think we're moving it in the right direction. Now we'll see, you know, how that can develop from here.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll be.
Yeah, it's easier for me to see how you would get a whole home built, like, as a thing to come up, but somebody in a residential area needs a new deck. Like, how do you find out about it? Like that?
Yeah, well, I think the city, because the city owns a lot of property, and there's a university program where they're trying to rehab apartment houses. So I think there's a lot of that, and with the housing fellowship too, I just think there's a lot of opportunities for building projects. But
Yeah, and even helping people who, for whatever reason, have a hard time maintaining their house, even small stuff like going around and readjusting downspouts and, you know, just fixing parts of the deck, replacing a stair or two, and, you know, maybe bust out a square of concrete and pour it. You know, little stuff like that. There's just tons of teaching, and for me it's nice because it's sort of like one and done, and then you get a new thing. So who knows how that could evolve as well. As another type of feeder or whatever. So, I mean, it just seems like there's just so much fruit on the vine. It's just like a matter of what do you pick first.
well, and I think too, and what I appreciate is making it sustainable, so that we can keep, you know, not trying to do everything all at once, but really building a foundation. so that we don't kind of lose the program again and go 15 years with nothing, and that we can just.
Yes. I agree.
I wonder too, we're going to be doing a lot of building as a district. There's some opportunity in the future when we're constructing an elementary school or building a wing to get.
There's some insurance problems there because when we work with the city, I know you had a big part of the MOU we created, and that was not easy to do because if the kid gets hurt, who's liable? And I am. So I'm here. I represent the district, and I'm the one who is responsible. So that way, if it was a homeowner and someone fell on something in their yard or something, that's where those legal agreements. The nice thing about already having this MOU with the city and the HBA and the district, that's why the Student Built House has already got the legal framework ready to go. Because that MOU was like 8 lawyers or something. So
we could definitely have some kids on those apprenticeship opportunities that could be working on our projects. With
I just think that kids would like it.
yeah.
Like I'm helping build a school in my own town.
It probably depends a little bit on, the contractor we're working with and what their comfort level is with some of these things. So.
Yeah, because like the shop that's being redone right now, just next to me. Today they weren't working in there, but we went in and we looked up, and I'm like, I went through all the systems that are hanging in the ceiling, and they left the blueprint out, so we're flipping through the blueprint. But they asked that we don't touch anything, that those particular contractors, and because I asked ahead of time, and so Mr. Jesperson, hey, is it okay if Mr. Reynolds and his students do a little bit? And they're like, we don't. But you're welcome to ask questions, hard hat, blaze, and safety glasses. Go on the job site and talk about it, but they're not the HBA, and that's kind of the problem I've run into in the past. But the HBA is now saying we get that part, and we're here for that. We're here not just to build this, but we're here to also mentor your students. So we kind of that hopefully has worked out, but might come across another curveball somewhere.
Great. Well, does anybody have anything else for these folks?
I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, thank you guys. This is really
Thank you.
And then I would just recommend also for students, but kind of the PR around this, right? I mean, this is really exciting. I think it's something the community would get really excited about. Running in a school board election, this stuff comes up all the time, and it's always like we never have enough. And I appreciate that we're kind of aligning things because we're going to do one thing really well instead of spreading ourselves all over the place. So thanks a lot.
Hey, I'm a humble employee, just enjoying it. So.
Thank you.
We're
Just gotta get
lucky.
kids out on a day like today and show them how awesome it is. Don't bring
I
them
know.
out when it's 95.
Not on
Yeah,
90.
that was
It was 90 out. The kids were like, Mr. Reynolds. I was
Right. So
like, take a break when you need one.
we are all official, so I would take a motion to adjourn if nobody else has anything.
I'll move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great.
Aye.
Aye.